It's a pleasure to see you again. In our previous interview, you did mention that before the script was ready, the idea of the film came from already knowing some actors that you wanted to work with. I wanted to know what surprised you the most when these actors were actually on set, because I think when you write a film already thinking of who is going to play, it's more unlikely that they'll come up with something you haven't really thought of before.
I had faith, and there was a lot of time in prep where we were able to spend time getting to know each other, talking about the project, talking about the characters. And I saw an incredible amount of dedication being put into this by Mikey especially, that I was confident going in. Now, of course, there's always that little bit of nervousness just before the first day. Mikey had to take on this New York accent and physically had to like become something that she totally isn't. Having her in the fur coat and the makeup and the tinsel and wearing all, and her nails especially, and she was transforming. So of course I didn't get to see her fully transformed until we did our first day of shooting. I have to tell you, it was a big sigh of relief. I was right there on the sidewalk underneath the train tracks of Brighton Beach Boulevard, and we shot one little moment it didn't even make it in the film because of we were just doing it just to get everybody warmed up, and I just saw her in that moment become Annie, and I was just like, thank God I made the right decision. So
Well,
then she kept on delivering every single day and getting better and better and better. So
there is no doubt that you made the right decision with the cast just because everyone was so impeccable. And one of the scenes that always makes me laugh every time I see it's just the scene that they're walking in Coney Island, and
yeah.
each had their own characteristic. And
Yeah.
it made me think of those classic comedies or even cartoon-like scenes. It was so well built, and these characters. So it made me also wonder what type of films that inspired you to have this very peculiar view for comedies, because you have your very unique sense of humor.
I've studied film for all my life, so I'm actually, very. I think that I'm subconsciously pulling from a lot. I mean, people have been bringing up Billy Wilder, and that's true. In general, I really love ensemble casts. I really like films in which you have a motley crew of characters, and that's, I think, films that have that, you can look back at those and say, okay, yeah, Sean must be pulling from them. The 80s had much more of an impact on me than I thought. I always thought I was like all 70s, like really pulling from 70s cinema. But if you look at Anora, there's Coming to America, there's Risky Business. You could say there's and then a little bit later in 1990, Pretty Woman, obviously. So I think that's when I was growing up in the 80s. And I think that I must have absorbed a lot. And then there's the style too. There's the style
Mhm.
and the stuff that I gave to my cinematographer, Drew Daniels, to look at. We were in love with Owen Roizman, who shot French Connection and those other gritty New York movies. So we applied that stuff. The technical aspect came from a whole other batch of movies.
Yeah, but we can tell that there is so much. I mean, I grew up also like late 80s, early 90s, and you can tell that there is a lot of that identity there. This could be a very dark story. It could be told in a very dramatic way, and yet you can tell it in a way that it's respectful to the seriousness of it, but also it's fun. People laugh at the most random moments. So why do you think this type of dark comedies, in lack of better expressions, are working so much with audiences nowadays?
Because I think that for the last maybe 10 years, we've been scared about mixing tones. And it's become a fear because of offending somebody or insulting somebody or triggering somebody. We're very sensitive to audiences now, but I think that, I mean, what that's resulted in a way, everything being sugar coated, or, if a film is going to be dark, it has to be just miserablest from
Mhm.
beginning to end. If it's going to be funny, it's going to be light. It's going to be light from beginning to end. And I think I like to mix it up because life is about mixing it up, right? Life is about comedy and pathos and that balance. So that's why I think audiences are liking the fact that sometimes they don't know whether to laugh or cry. I think that's interesting because it keeps the audience engaged and thinking. If it's not just like, okay, here comes and I'm being told what to think, I'm being told what to think. Now they're actually thinking on their own.
So just because we don't have so much time, but I did want to ask you about the soundtrack because that's almost a character on its own. How did
Oh,
you go about choosing the music for this film?
thank you. That means a lot because I take my music very seriously. Some of the songs later on in the film, in the club, and some of those needle drops actually came from some of the dancers. They told us this is an anthem in the stripper world. You have to use this, like the Slater soundtrack, like the Slater song later on. And then there were other tracks that I always knew I wanted to have in there. Tattoo, DMX, stuff that's like, just like, I don't understand why that hasn't been used before. And it was so appropriate for this film. And then there's Take That. That's the real anthem of the movie, The Greatest Day. And that was very serendipity, actually, what happened there, because we choreographed the opening to another song. And then when we got into post-production, we realized that song wasn't speaking to the movie anymore. It's a big song, a very big pop song. And so I was driving around with my wife, Samantha, and we were very frustrated because we didn't know what we were going to do. And we knew we needed some sort of a big, important song for the opening. And I said, isn't there a song about a greatest day? There has to be a song about some like a greatest day because this is her greatest day, or maybe she thinks it's her greatest day. Sam just looked at her phone or Spotify and said, well, there is a song called Greatest Day. It's from Take That. And she played it and we were in love with it. The second she played it, it's an earworm. So it just sticks with you. We were humming it. We got home, we threw it on the opening credits and it sunk up perfectly.
That's the magic of cinema right there, right?
Yep,
Thank
yep.
you so much. Congratulations again on the film. And again, it's one of the most fun things I've seen all year. So thank you so much.
That means a lot. Thank you. Good seeing you
Thank
again.
you.